They sent the obese girl to his barn to tame his horse as a joke, but the cowboy kept her instead. The church bell rang through the dusty streets of Briar Creek, signaling the start of the town's annual service week, a week meant to help the less fortunate contribute, though for many it had become an excuse for the town's proud and petty to push around anyone they considered beneath them. Nora Brandt stepped off the boardwalk and tugged at the hem of her faded blue dress. It clung a bit tighter than she liked, not because she minded her size but because she knew they minded it. The baker's wife eyed her with open disapproval as Nora passed, whispering to a friend, "That one's useless for ranch work. Can barely climb stairs far as I hear." The friend clicked her tongue. "If they assign her to anything physical, we'll hear her crying before sunset." Nora kept walking. Her heart tried to thud its way out of her chest, but she held her head high. Even if her chin trembled, she didn't let it drop. She'd learned long ago that lowering it only invited cruelty. The town hall was bustling with people. Ranchers, wives, teenagers eager to show off their skills, and people like Nora, the ones folks talked about like they were problems to be solved. The charity committee sat at a long table, led by Mrs. Dalloway, whose smiles were thinner than fence wire. She looked down at the list in front of her with exaggerated importance. "Nora Brandt," she announced loudly, making sure everyone nearby heard. "Your assignment is rather unconventional." A ripple of giggles fluttered through the crowd. Nora stepped closer, steadying herself. "Yes, ma'am?" Mrs. Dalloway slid a paper across the table with 2 fingers, as though touching it more than necessary might contaminate her. "You will be serving as temporary horse handler at the Thorne Ranch." Silence fell. Then disbelieving laughter erupted like a firecracker. "What?" someone snorted. "Are they trying to get her killed? She can't even saddle a pony." Nora felt every word like a stone in her stomach. She'd expected something humiliating, yes. But this was deadly. Everyone in Briar Creek knew Cole Thorne, the rugged, quiet cowboy who ran the farthest ranch on the outskirts of town. He didn't take well to visitors, and he especially didn't tolerate incompetence. He was respected, feared, admired, and avoided. And his black stallion Nightwind was even worse. A devil of a horse, some said. Wild blood in him. Most ranch hands refused to go near him. Nora swallowed hard. "Ma'am, I think there's been a mistake." "No mistake," Mrs. Dalloway said brightly. "You will report to Cole Thorne immediately. He's expecting you." From the back, someone called out, "Bet she won't make it 10 minutes. Another voice chimed in, "Nightwind'll kick her from here to next Sunday." More laughter. Nora clenched her jaw. Their delight in her fear made her spine stiffen. If she refused, they'd call her a coward. She went, well, maybe she wouldn't last 10 minutes. But she refused to let them see her break. She picked up the assignment slip. Her hand shook, but her voice didn't. "Thank you," she said, ignoring Mrs. Dalloway's smug satisfaction. Outside, the sun beat down hot and merciless as Nora walked toward the edge of town. Every step felt like walking into a storm. The road to the ranch. Dust swirled around her boots as she trudged along the dirt road leading to Thorne Ranch. Sagebrush whispered in the wind. A hawk circled overhead. The world felt too big, too open, and she felt too small inside it, but she didn't stop. Cole Thorne's property came into view like something carved out of another world. The ranch sprawled wide across the land, open fields, scattered pines, a creek snaking through. Horses grazed in distant corrals. The barn stood tall, weathered, and silent except for the restless stamping of hooves within. And there he was. Cole Thorne leaned against the barn door frame, arms crossed, hat low over his eyes, the picture of a man who'd lived his entire life doing hard, honest work. His shirt sleeves were rolled up, revealing strong forearms dusted with hay. His gaze was sharp and assessing, like he was taking her measure with a single glance. Nora's stomach twisted. Cole wasn't smiling. He rarely did. As she approached, he didn't move, just watched her come closer with the calm intensity of someone who expected the worst and preferred it that way. "Nora Brandt?" he asked, voice deep, roughened by sun and silence. She nodded, trying not to fidget. "Yes, sir. The town assigned me to tame my stallion," he said, finishing for her. He pushed off the doorframe, boots thudding on the porch. "I heard." Nora braced herself for ridicule, for annoyance, for disbelief. But Cole didn't smirk. Didn't sneer. Didn't look amused or angry. He looked curious, like he was studying a puzzle he hadn't expected. She straightened her shoulders. "I know I'm not what you expected." "Maybe not," he said slowly, eyes never leaving hers. "But the town wouldn't send you unless they thought you could handle it." Nora almost laughed but didn't dare. She lifted her chin. They didn't send me because they thought I could. They sent me because they thought I couldn't. Cole's expression shifted, barely, but enough that she saw something flicker behind his eyes. Understanding, maybe. Irritation on her behalf. Or something else entirely. After a moment he stepped aside, opening the barn door. "Well, Miss Brandt," he said quietly, "you're here now? Let's see what you've got." The barn was warm and dim, smelling of hay and leather. And somewhere inside, a wild stallion screamed. Nora's pulse raced. Cole watched her steadily. And despite the fear trembling through her, she stepped inside. The girl the town mocked was about to face the horse no man could handle, and a cowboy no one could impress. But she wasn't turning back. Not now. Not ever. The barn was dim, lit only by slanted shafts of late afternoon sunlight piercing through cracks in the wood. Dust floated lazily in the beams, dancing in the warm air. Outside, the wind rustled the cottonwoods. Inside, something thundered. A violent crash shook the rafters. Nora froze in place. Cole didn't flinch. "That'd be him," he said calmly, closing the barn door behind them. Night wind. Another roar, half scream, half fury, split the air. Cole walked forward without hesitation, boots echoing on the wooden floor. Nora followed, her breath shallow. She expected the smell of sweat and leather, but underneath it was something sharper, fear mixed with storm. When they reached the first stall, Cole tilted his head in its direction. "He's in here." Nora stepped forward and saw him. Nightwind. A massive black stallion, muscles rippling like storm clouds rolling across the sky. His coat gleamed obsidian even in the dim light. His mane hung wild and tangled. His eyes, wide, white-ringed, flashed like lightning. He struck the stall door with one hoof so hard the wood shuddered. Nora gasped. Cole placed a steadying hand on her shoulder. "Easy. He's all noise most days." But even he didn't sound fully convinced. The horse that feared everyone. Nightwind pawed violently at the ground, head tossing, breath blowing hot and aggressive through his nostrils. Dust rose around him like smoke. Nora swallowed. He looks angry." Cole stepped closer to the stall, voice even. "He's scared." She blinked. "Scared? Of what?" "Of people," Cole said quietly. "Of what they've done to him." Nora turned to him sharply. There was something hard in his expression, something protective. "Someone mistreated him," he said. "Before he came to me. Broke him too hard. Tried to make him submit." Cole took a slow breath. You can't beat fear out of a horse. You can only bury it deep enough to make him dangerous. Nora stared at the stallion with new understanding. He wasn't evil. He was wounded. Just like her. Cole continued, "He doesn't let anyone near him. He's thrown every stable boy I've hired. Would have broken my arm last week if I hadn't moved fast." Nora's eyes widened. "And they want me to handle him?" "They want you to fail," Cole said bluntly. "That much is clear." The honesty hit her harder than the cruelty back in town. For the first time, Cole shifted his gaze directly to her. "But that doesn't mean you will." "First approach." Nora exhaled, gathering courage like gathering scraps of fabric to sew something useful out of nothing. She stepped forward. Nightwind snorted, ears pinning back. His massive frame tensed like a bowstring about to snap. "Nora," Cole warned softly. "You don't need to." "I do," she whispered. She didn't know anything about horses. She didn't know how to touch one, how to read one, how to train one. All she knew was what it felt like to be judged before anyone ever learned who you were. She moved closer. Nightwind slammed his hoof down, jerking his head violently. Cole took a step closer to her, ready to intervene. "Slow." His voice dropped lower, gentler. "Don't get too close. Let him see you first." "I think he already sees me," she murmured. Nightwind's eyes burned into hers, searching, frantic, like he expected pain to follow her presence. Nora lifted her hands slightly. Not in fear. In offering. "Hey," she whispered. "It's all right." Her voice was barely sound at all, just breath. But the stallion's ears flicked toward her. He stopped tossing his head. Cole's brows lowered, surprised. "Keep going. You've got his attention." Nora took a step forward. Nightwind didn't rear. Didn't stomp. Didn't scream. He watched her. Raw, unsure. Like a cornered animal trying to decide if she was danger or mercy. "I know what it's like," she whispered, inching closer. "When people expect the worst from you before they ever learn the truth." Her throat grew tight with emotion she didn't expect to feel. Nightwind blew out a hot breath, snorting softly. Cole's breath caught. "No one's ever gotten this close," he murmured. Nora didn't hear him. She was too focused on the stallion, and the strange connection humming between them. When she finally reached the stall door, she extended her trembling hand, palm up. Nightwind's head jerked forward. Cole reached out as if to grab her. But the stallion didn't bite. He didn't rear. He moved toward her, slowly, hesitantly, like a creature approaching a quiet stream for the first time in years. His massive muzzle touched her palm. Softly. Willingly. Nora gasped. Cole froze. The barn fell utterly, impossibly silent. Nightwind huffed a gentle breath against her skin and lowered his head as if surrendering to her presence. Cole spoke in a hoarse whisper, unable to mask his awe. I've never seen him do that. Nora looked at him, her eyes wide, shining. I haven't either, she breathed. The moment that changed everything. Cole stepped forward, slow, as if afraid a sudden movement would shatter whatever fragile miracle this was. Nightwind didn't react to him. He stayed focused entirely on Nora. Cole shook his head. This is impossible. Nora stroked the stallion's muzzle, hesitantly, gently, like petting a storm that had decided to calm for her alone. Nightwind leaned into her touch. Cole swallowed hard. You've got a gift, Nora Brandt. Her heart thudded. No, she whispered. I'm just trying. Cole stepped closer, his voice low enough for only her to hear. No, this isn't trying. This is something else entirely. For the first time since she entered Briar Creek, someone said something about her with wonder instead of mockery. Nightwind nudged her shoulder softly. Cole watched, a quiet awe in his eyes. And in that moment, between a bruised girl, a broken horse, and the cowboy who stood stunned by both, something shifted. Something began. Morning spilled softly across the Thorne Ranch, painting the sky in streaks of dusty rose and pale gold. Nora stepped out of the bunkhouse, the cool air brushing against her cheeks like a whispered blessing. She hadn't slept much. Her mind kept replaying the moment when Nightwind pressed his muzzle into her hand as if he'd been waiting for her, and only her, all along. Today she wasn't sure whether she was more excited or terrified. Cole Thorne was already outside, saddling a bay mare with practiced hands. He glanced up as she approached. Morning, Nora. He said it simply, without judgment or impatience, just a greeting. But to Nora it felt warm. Something she rarely felt directed at her. Good morning, she replied, tucking a curl behind her ear. Am I late? Nope. Cole tightened the saddle strap. You're early. He sounded almost surprised. It gave her a tiny bolt of pride. Cole nodded toward the barn. Nightwind's awake. He's calmer than usual. Must have sensed you coming. Her breath hitched. Is that normal? For him? Cole shook his head. No. Not even close. Respect in small moments. Inside the barn, Nightwind was pacing, but not violently, more like he was searching for her. As soon as he heard Nora's soft footsteps, he stopped and turned his massive head toward her, nostrils flaring gently. Cole kept his voice low. He recognizes you. Nora stepped closer. Hey boy. The stallion lowered his head. Cole swore under his breath, quietly but not quietly enough. What's wrong? Nora asked. Nothing, he muttered. Just, never seen anything like this. Nora reached out, stroking Nightwind's muzzle. The horse leaned into her again, trusting her without hesitation. Cole watched, arms crossed, jaw tight, not in anger but in a strange mixture of awe and thoughtfulness. You move slow, Cole finally said after a quiet minute. Gentle. Horses feel that. I'm just trying not to scare him. That's what most folks get wrong. Cole stepped closer, leaning against the stall door. They try to dominate him. Show him who's in charge. Doesn't work. Makes him fight harder. Because he thinks he has to, Nora whispered. Cole's eyes softened. Exactly. He studied her, really studied her. Not like the townspeople did, with measurement and mockery. But as though he was trying to understand something new. You don't look at him like he's dangerous. He's only dangerous when he's afraid, Nora said. Cole held her gaze. Same could be said about people. Nora blinked, startled by the meaning tucked inside his words. Was he talking about Nightwind? Or himself? She didn't know, but something settled warm in her chest. A lesson she didn't expect. Cole unlocked the stall door slowly. Let's take the next step. Nora stiffened. Next step. Brushing him. If he lets you. She inhaled sharply. And if he doesn't? Then he'll tell us, Cole said. But he won't hurt you. He said it with a confidence she didn't feel, but somehow trusted anyway. Cole stepped inside first, moving with careful authority. He nodded for her to follow. Nora entered the stall, every muscle tense. Nightwind stepped forward immediately but not to charge. To greet her. Cole's brows lifted. I'll be damned. Nora's laugh was nervous but genuine. Cole handed her a soft bristle brush. Start with his shoulder. Let him feel your rhythm. She reached out, and Nightwind relaxed under her touch, his breathing slowing. His eyes drifted half-closed like he was savoring something he thought he'd lost forever. Cole murmured, he likes you. He doesn't know me. Maybe he knows enough. Nora flushed, warmth lacing her throat and cheeks. She brushed the stallion in slow, steady strokes. Nightwind let out a long sigh, a release of tension so profound that even Cole seemed taken aback. After a moment, Cole walked around, checking the horse's stance, the rhythm of his breaths, the twitch of his ears. He trusts you, Cole said finally. I can't believe this is real, she whispered. Cole's voice lowered, soft but steady. Believe it? Animals don't lie. Nora looked down, her heart thumping. People do. Cole paused. Yeah, he said quietly. People do. Accidental closeness. Nightwind shifted suddenly, nudging Nora's shoulder and pushing her off balance. She stumbled backward, straight into Cole's chest. His hands caught her instinctively, strong and warm, steadying her with surprising gentleness. You all right? He asked, voice roughened by surprise. Nora's breath caught. She nodded. His hands lingered for half a second longer than necessary. Then he stepped back, clearing his throat. He's, protective. Of you. Nora laughed softly. It feels like he's treating me like I'm his person. Maybe you are. The words hung between them. Nora blinked up at him. Cole. I don't even know what I'm doing. That's the funny thing, he said, staring down at her with an intensity that made her pulse race. You're doing everything right. She looked away, flustered. No one had ever told her that before. Not once. Not about anything. Cole watched her with a softness she didn't understand, not yet. But it warmed her more than the morning sun. An invitation that changed everything. After chores, Cole said, I want to teach you to ride. Nora's heart stuttered. Me? Ride. He nodded. You've earned it. But I've never. You'll learn. His voice firmed. And I'll teach you. She swallowed. Why? Cole hesitated, thumb tracing the edge of his belt. Because you belong here more than most folks who walk through my gates. Nora stared stunned. Cole tipped his hat back, sunlight catching the sharp lines of his face. And I don't say things I don't mean. Heat flooded her cheeks. Nightwind nudged her again, protective and affectionate. Cole watched the interaction with a small, private smile. You're good for him, he said quietly. And I think, you're good for this ranch. He paused, then added even more softly. Good for me, maybe? Nora's breath caught. For the first time in her life, someone wasn't just seeing what she lacked. They were seeing her. And it was changing everything. The storm that had rolled across the plains the night before left the ranch smelling of wet cedar and clean air. The world was fresh-washed, sparkling beneath the early sun. But inside Cole Thorne's barn, tension hung sharp as a knife. Nora stood outside Midnight's stall again, this time without trembling, though her heart still pounded hard enough to feel in her throat. Cole stood nearby, arms folded, eyes narrowed but no longer cold. More watchful. Curious even. Midnight pawed at the straw, ears flicked forward, muscles tight beneath his coal-black coat. But instead of lunging, he was simply waiting. You don't have to do this today, Cole said quietly, breaking the silence. Nora looked over her shoulder at him. I think I do. His jaw shifted, a sign he wasn't sure he liked that answer. And why's that? Because yesterday everyone thought I'd run screaming before I even touched a rope. Her voice didn't shake, she was proud of that. But something happened in here, Cole. He looked at me like I mattered. Like he recognized something I don't see in myself yet. Her voice softened. And I want to understand why. Cole studied her for a long moment and she felt that strange awareness again, the sense that he saw more than he let on. You earned his respect, he said finally. Horses don't lie. Nora blinked. Respect? Me? He stepped closer, lowering his voice. Don't let them talk you out of believing what's right in front of you. A warm flush crept through her chest. No one had ever spoken to her like that, not without pity, not without mocking, not without that quiet dismissal people used on girls shaped like her. But Cole spoke with conviction as if it was simply truth. They turned back to Midnight. Well, Cole continued, clearing his throat as though uncomfortable with his own sincerity, Let's see if yesterday was a fluke. Nora took a breath then stepped forward. Midnight's ears twitched. He lifted his head. Cole watched carefully. Slow. Let him come to you if he wants. Nora nodded and held out her hand, not high, not threatening. Just an offering. Midnight moved. One step. Another. And then he pressed his great, warm nose to her open palm as though greeting an old friend. Cole exhaled sharply. I'll be. Nora didn't hear the rest. Midnight was nuzzling her gently, sniffing her coat, brushing his cheek against her shoulder. She laughed softly, astonished, relieved, overwhelmed all at once. I don't understand, she whispered, running careful fingers along his jawline. He's sweet. He's not sweet, Cole reminded her, stunned confusion giving way to something that looked almost like awe. He's a half-wild lightning bolt. No one else on this ranch gets within striking distance without him trying to take their head off. Nora looked up at him. Then why me? Cole walked forward, slow and cautious as if afraid the moment would break. Maybe because you don't try to force yourself on him, he said. You don't hide what you feel. You're honest. Nora smiled faintly. I've never been good at pretending. Good, Cole said almost gruff. Pretending never taught anyone how to handle a horse. Midnight nudged Nora again, then made a deep, rumbling sound in his chest. Cole's eyebrows shot up. Did he just greet you? Nora's smile widened. I think so. Well, Cole muttered, rubbing the back of his neck, you're gonna make the entire ranch crew furious. Why? She asked. Because they've spent months trying to get that horse to tolerate them. You walk in here 2 days and he acts like he's known you his whole life. His voice softened. Nora, this isn't normal. She ran her fingers through Midnight's mane, feeling warmth and power beneath her palms, feeling seen in a way she couldn't explain. I think, she said thoughtfully, he just needed someone who knew what it felt like to be misunderstood. Cole's gaze snapped to her, something shifting in his expression, something she couldn't name. That, he said quietly, makes 2 of us. Nora froze. Cole seemed to regret the words the moment they left his mouth. He cleared his throat and stepped back, putting space between them. Right, he said. Let's keep working. But Nora didn't miss the way he looked at her. Not like she was a burden. Not like she was a joke. Like she was becoming someone he didn't want to look away from. She stroked the horse's neck, Midnight leaning into her hand. And for the first time in her life, Nora felt something bloom inside her. A warmth, a fierce spark. Possibility. She whispered to the stallion, we're going to prove them wrong, you and me. Midnight snorted as if agreeing. But she didn't notice Cole watching her with a strange, unreadable expression. One that held more danger than the horse ever had. Because while the town had sent her to fail, Cole Thorne was beginning to think he'd been sent a miracle instead. By morning, the story had already spread across Willow Creek like wildfire. Nora Jensen, soft-spoken, heavy-figured, the girl people saw before they listened to, had walked straight into Cole Thorne's barn and calmed the devil stallion with nothing but a steady hand and a gentle voice. Impossible, they said. Ridiculous, others argued. A lie if you insisted. And yet, every rumor circled back to one truth. Cole Thorne kept her on the ranch and no one could understand why. The town reacts. Down at Millie's general store, voices buzzed like angry bees. Cole must be out of his mind, barked Earl Stanton, adjusting his dusty hat. She'll get herself killed, muttered Hank, tossing a sack of flour on the counter. Girl ain't meant for ranch work. Mrs. Whitmore, the town's unofficial gossip queen, leaned in with relish. I heard he's lettin' her handle Midnight again today. A gasp rippled through the little crowd. Midnight, Cole's dangerous stallion, the one who'd nearly trampled 2 seasoned ranch hands. She's too big to move fast enough, someone whispered cruelly. She's too soft, someone else sneered. She's. Millie slammed her hand on the counter. The store fell silent. She's a girl trying to do honest work, the older woman snapped. And Cole Thorne ain't the kind to humor a fool. So maybe she's got something you all don't. The room stiffened. But no one argued. It was hard to argue with Millie when fire lit her eyes. Still, the whispers followed Nora all the way back to Cole's ranch. Nora faces the echoes. Nora stepped out of the small bunkhouse Cole had given her. A simple wooden cabin with a narrow bed, a fireplace, and a quilt she suspected he'd placed there himself when no one was looking. Her stomach churned with nerves. 2 ranch hands stood by the corral fence as she passed. Look, one whispered. That's her, the other said, tone sharp. Let's see how long this lasts. Their words stung, but she kept her chin high. She'd heard worse. She'd lived worse. But now, something inside her pushed back. A voice she barely recognized. Midnight trusts you. Cole believes in you. That has to count for something. She inhaled deeply, trying to steady her breath. That's when she saw Cole. Cole notices everything. He stood in the doorway of the barn, sleeves rolled, sunlight catching on the edges of his dark hair. He was cleaning leather tack, but his eyes lifted the moment he sensed her. You okay? He asked. The question was simple. But his tone, rough, sincere, felt like a warm blanket on a cold morning. Nora swallowed. People in town are talking. Cole grunted. Let them talk. You don't care? She asked quietly. Oh, I care. His jaw tightened. I care that they're small-minded cowards who couldn't see the truth if it kicked them square in the backside. Nora blinked. The truth? You're the only one Midnight listens to. Heat rushed to her cheeks. He noticed. Cole cleared his throat and set the tack aside. Come on. Midnight's been waiting on you. Midnight chooses again. In the stall, the black stallion lifted his head the instant Nora stepped inside. His ears perked forward. His entire posture softened. He chose her, again. Cole murmured, amazed, never seen him act like that with a soul. Nora stroked Midnight's neck. Hey boy. The stallion pressed his forehead against her shoulder. Cole stared stunned. He's bonding. Is that bad? Nora asked, suddenly unsure. Cole shook his head firmly. It's rare. Rare and valuable. A horse like him only bonds once, maybe twice in his entire life. And when he does, he protects what he chooses. Nora froze. Protects. Cole met her eyes. He'd run through fire for you. Her throat tightened with emotion. No one had ever chosen her before, not people, not family, not friends. And now this powerful, misunderstood animal had decided she was his person. Cole trains her personally. As the day stretched on, Cole worked with her one-on-one, closer than he'd ever been. Their shoulders brushed. Their hands met on the same rope. He guided her posture, corrected her stance, murmured instructions in a low voice that sent a strange flutter through her ribs. At one point, his hand settled lightly at her waist to steady her. She stiffened in surprise. He froze immediately. Sorry. It's okay, she whispered, though her heart beat wildly. Just didn't want you losing your balance, he said, voice a little too gruff, a little too controlled. But throughout the lesson he kept glancing at her, quick, quiet, unguarded looks. As if seeing her was something he couldn't help. When she finally managed to lead Midnight into a small circle, guiding him with a soft easy now, Cole let out a slow, impressed whistle. Most people can't get him to take one step, he said. You just led him in a perfect arc. Nora flushed. I didn't know if I could. You can, he said softly. You're a natural. And coming from him, it felt like praise she could hold in both hands. The spark the town didn't expect. Later, as the sun dipped low, painting the fields gold and red, Cole walked her back toward the bunkhouse. The air between them felt different. He kept his hands tucked in his pockets as if unsure what to do with them. You know, he said, glancing sideways, I didn't expect any of this. Me neither. Midnight choosing you. His voice lowered. Me trusting you. Nora looked up, heart fluttering. Is that what this is? Trust. He paused, stopping just at the bottom step of her bunkhouse porch. His eyes, normally cool steel, warmed with something she didn't understand yet. Something he maybe didn't want her to see. Yeah, he said finally. It is. Their breaths mingled in the fading light. Neither of them stepped back. And for the first time in her life, Nora felt a man look at her the way women dreamed of, like she wasn't a joke, like she wasn't a burden, like she wasn't someone to laugh at or pity. But someone worth seeing. Someone worth keeping. What they don't know is coming. Inside the barn, Midnight pawed the ground, restless, not with fear but with instinct. Outside the ranch, the whispers in town twisted darker. And Miles Haskett, the man who thought putting Nora on this ranch would embarrass her, was about to learn his mistake. Because Nora Jensen wasn't failing. She was rising. And Cole Thorne, a man who'd vowed never to let anyone past his walls again, was beginning to fall for her in ways he didn't dare admit. Not yet. But soon. Very soon. The next morning dawned cold and wind-bitter, the kind of morning where breath turned white and frost clung to fence rails. Nora bundled into her coat and stepped into the barn just as the first streaks of dawn lit the sky. Midnight whinnied softly at her arrival. Cole, leaning against the stall door, arms crossed, hat pushed low, lifted his eyes the moment he heard her footsteps. What surprised her wasn't that he noticed, but that he looked relieved. You sleep at all? He asked. A little, she admitted. Too much thinking. He gave a knowing grunt. About the town? About everything. Cole pushed off the stall door and stepped closer. Nora, you don't owe that town a thing. Not their approval. Not their respect. And definitely not their forgiveness. I know, she said quietly. But it still hurts. He nodded. Yeah, it does. And just like that, without touching her, without saying another word, he made her feel seen again. A glove, a look, a shift. Cole handed her a pair of worn leather gloves. She slid them on, fingers clumsy from nerves. The moment her glove snagged on a stubborn thread, Cole reached out and took her hand to fix it. It was the first time he'd touched her without hesitation. His hands were warm, rough, sure. She held her breath. He didn't? Better, he murmured. Her hand stayed in his a second too long. He didn't let go. Then, as if suddenly realizing it, he released her and stepped back, clearing his throat. Let's work on round penning today. She nodded, trying to ignore the fluttering behind her ribs. Training, trust, and the strange pull between them. Inside the round pen, midnight circled her, powerful hooves sending dust swirling through cold air. Nora stayed in the center just as Cole taught her. Body calm, breath even, voice steady. Good, Cole called out. Keep your shoulders relaxed. I'm trying. You're doing more than trying, he corrected. You're learning. Midnight slowed. His ears tipped toward her. He made a low sound in his throat. He's ready to join up, Cole said. Turn your back. Show him you trust him. Nora hesitated only a moment before doing just that. Silence. Footsteps. Warm breath at her shoulder. She turned slowly, and Midnight pressed his face gently against her chest, choosing her all over again. Cole swore under his breath, a soft, stunned exhale. That's Bond-level stuff, Nora, he said quietly. That's rare. She stroked the stallion's neck. Why would he choose me? Cole walked toward her, stopping only a foot away. Because you're steady. You're kind. You listen. Horses know who a person is without words. He paused. People don't always see the truth that clearly. Their eyes held. And the world seemed to still. A glimpse into Cole's past. Later, after they cooled down Midnight, Cole leaned on the barn doorway, watching the horizon darken with thick, rolling clouds. Storm's coming, he muttered. Nora joined him. A real one, or the kind you keep between your ribs? He stiffened. For a moment she thought she'd crossed a line. But then he let out a soft, humorless breath. Both, I guess. She waited, not pushing, simply present. Finally he spoke. 2 years back I tried to break a horse too fast, he said. Thunderbolt. Big roan. Proud. Too proud. His jaw tightened. He threw me hard. Broken ribs, busted shoulder. My brother rushed in to help. Horse spooked. Kicked out. Nora's heart dropped. Cole? He didn't make it. The barn was suddenly too quiet. Nora placed her hand gently on his arm, not grabbing, not pulling, just a touch of warmth against all that pain. I'm so sorry, she whispered. Cole didn't move. Didn't speak. But he didn't pull away. I swore I'd never let another horse close again, he finally said. Never let anyone close again. Nora's throat tightened. And now? He looked at her. Really looked. You're messing up all my promises, he murmured. Her heart did something wild in her chest. The touch that changed everything. The wind howled outside, slamming against the barn doors. Thunder rumbled in the distance. Nora stepped closer without thinking. Cole didn't move away. His voice was low, rough. You deserve better than this town, Nora. Better than the way they talk about you. Better than what they expect of you. She swallowed hard. What do you expect of me? He reached out, slowly, giving her time to pull away. But she didn't. His fingers brushed her cheek, warm and careful. He treated her as if touching her mattered. I expect you, he said quietly, to be braver than you think you are. Her breath trembled. And, what else? She whispered. His thumb traced just once along her cheekbone. I expect, he said, voice almost breaking, that if I'm not careful, you're gonna change everything. She felt the truth of it. Felt the gravity pulling them closer. Felt herself leaning in just enough. A loud shout shattered the moment. Thorne. Both froze. Rain began pounding the roof. Cole's jaw clenched. Miles Haskett. Nora's stomach dropped. The man who'd sent her here as a cruel joke. The man who didn't want her to succeed. Cole stepped in front of her instinctively. Protective. Ready. Storm-dark eyes burning with something she'd never seen in a man directed at her before. She's here, Miles shouted from outside the barn. And I'm here to take her back. Nora's pulse thundered. Cole spoke low, dangerous. Over my dead body. Lightning cracked. Thunder shook the walls. And the storm, outside and inside, finally broke. Rain hammered the ranch like 1,000 fists as Cole stepped out of the barn, shielding Nora behind him. Lightning split the sky, illuminating Miles Haskett standing in the mud with 3 other ranch boys, men who had mocked Nora in town, men who expected to watch her fail. Move aside, Thorne, Miles barked. She's done here. Cole didn't move an inch. Funny, Cole growled, I didn't hear Nora ask to leave. Miles scoffed. She doesn't know what she's doing. Girl can't lift a bale of hay without wheezing. Putting her with that stallion was a joke. You weren't supposed to take it seriously. Cole's jaw worked. And yet she did more in 3 days than you've done in your whole life. A ripple of anger flashed across Miles's face. Town's talkin', Miles snapped. Say you've gone soft. Say you're lettin' some. Cole exploded forward, his voice cracking like thunder. You finish that sentence and I'll put you in the dirt. Miles didn't finish it. Nora, breath shaking, touched Cole's arm. His muscles tensed under her hand, but her touch softened something in him instantly. I'll talk to him, she whispered. No, Cole said low and fierce. He doesn't deserve. But Nora stepped past him. Not because Miles was right, but because she was done letting anyone speak for her. Nora faces him herself. Miles's expression twisted when she approached. Well, look who found her courage, he sneered. Nora's voice didn't shake. I didn't lose it. You just never looked long enough to see it. A few of the ranch boys shifted uncomfortably. You sent me here as a joke, she continued. You thought I'd embarrass myself. Thought I'd crawl home crying. You wanted to prove I was weak. Miles smirked. Seems like it worked. Nora stepped closer, rain soaking her hair, thunder growling overhead. No, she said. Because for the first time in my life, I proved myself to me. Miles scoffed and turned toward Cole. You really want this girl on your ranch? She's nothing but. Midnight screamed. The stallion's roar cut through the storm like a living warning. From inside the barn, he crashed against the stall door, furious, protective, because someone had stepped too close to the woman he'd bonded to. Miles jerked back, startled. What the? Cole smirked. Looks like Midnight's made his choice too. Midnight breaks free. Another slam. Another roar. Then the stall door burst open. Midnight surged into the rain, black mane whipping, eyes blazing. He ran straight toward Nora, but not to harm. He circled her, placing himself between her and Miles, chest heaving, tail lashing, protective as a wolf over its young. The ranch boys bolted back in terror. Nora touched Midnight's neck. Easy boy, easy. The stallion lowered his head instantly. Miles stared, soaked and pale. What kind of witchcraft is that? He whispered. Cole stepped to Nora's side, hand hovering near her back, not touching but close enough to warm her through the storm. It's not witchcraft, Cole said. It's something you wouldn't understand. Miles swallowed. She ain't meant for this kind of work. Cole tilted his head. Funny how the horse disagrees. Nora lifted her chin. I'm not leaving. Not because you said so. Not because the town expects me to fail. And definitely not because someone who never believed in me wants to feel powerful again. Miles's face twisted with humiliation and fury. You'll regret this, Nora. You'll regret staying here. Cole stepped forward, voice lethal. She won't regret a damn thing. And if you or anyone else comes near her again, you'll regret that. The message landed. Art. Miles and his crew retreated into the storm, swallowed by darkness. And suddenly quiet fell. The kind of quiet that comes after a choice is made and fate shifts. Cole finally lets his guard fall. Cole turned to Nora slowly, rain dripping from the brim of his hat. You okay? He asked, voice lower than she'd ever heard. She nodded, breath trembling. I think so. You didn't have to face him alone. I did, she whispered. Because I'm not the same woman who walked onto your ranch. A muscle jumped in Cole's jaw, like he was battling something inside himself. Then he stepped closer. Good, he murmured. Because the woman standing in front of me now, she's strong, brave, more capable than anyone in that town. His hand lifted, hesitated, then settled gently, reverently on her cheek. Her breath caught. You saved a horse no one could touch, he whispered. You stood up to a man who tried to break you. You gave Midnight a reason to trust again. His thumb brushed her skin. And damn it, Nora, you gave me a reason to feel again. Lightning flashed, bright and white, and for one wild moment the world felt suspended. Nora whispered, Cole? He leaned in, slow, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. Their foreheads touched first, warm despite the rain. Then his voice, low and rough, broke the last barrier between them. I don't want you going anywhere, he said. Not because of midnight. Not because of the ranch. Because this place. Because I haven't felt alive like this in years. Her heart thundered. Are you sure? She breathed. His answer was a soft, rough confession. I'm keeping you, Nora. If you'll let me. A choice made in the quiet between thunder. Nora's eyes burned, not from sadness, but from something fierce and overwhelming. Then I'm staying, she whispered. Not because they sent me here. Not because they wanted me to fail. She placed her hand over his heart. I'm staying because I choose you. The storm raged around them, but inside the circle of Cole's arms and Midnight's quiet watchfulness, Nora felt something she hadn't felt in years. Safe. Wanted. Home. The beginning of what comes next. The town could whisper. Miles could scheme. The world could doubt her. It didn't matter. Because she had a stallion who would run through fire for her. A man who saw her worth without asking her to shrink or change. And a heart that finally understood its own strength. Nora Jensen hadn't been sent to fail. She'd been sent to find the life waiting for her. And Cole Thorne intended to stand beside her for every step of it.